sir. It's so beautiful that when we speak about machine, when we speak about our jets who have served our Indian Armed Forces for so many years, we almost speak about it as if we are speaking about a human being. It's so emotional for all of us because, you know, it was not only a fighter jet for us, it was also symbolic to what Indo-Russian military ties actually stand for. Later in the final years, unfortunately, the tag that the jet got was of a flying coffin because of multiple technical snags. But this symbolism that this jet holds at this point of time with regards to the bilateral ties that we have with Russia in terms of the military relations, and also like we are celebrating the retirement day of the jet, is extremely beautiful in nature. Your thoughts on that?
Very nicely put across. It's with great nostalgia that I remember the MiG-21 aircraft and my flying days in MiG-21 aircraft. I have thousands of hours and I have flown the type 77, that is MiG-21 FL, the MiG-21 MF, that is type 96, and MiG-21 type 75, that was called as BIS or Invincible or The End. So this particular aircraft is extremely close to my heart, though it came in 1963 as a counter to the F-104 Starfighter of Pakistan. At the same time, the Russians, the Soviet Unions had developed it primarily for U-2 American spy plane to be a high-level air defense supersonic fighter aircraft, which means India's first supersonic fighter aircraft. That's why number 28 squadron was formed in Chandigarh. And I had the great privilege of flying with 28 squadron as my first fighter squadron of in Indian Air Force in terms of MiG-21s. I learned flying from that. It taught me how to fight in extremely difficult circumstances under extremely challenging situations. And I can assure you that I do not call this aircraft as a machine. I called it as my warrior lady. And I'm telling you that we used to communicate with each other. You know, when we used to fly, I had to be in sync with the aircraft's capabilities and limitations. And anybody who says it was costly to Indian Air Force or that it is a kind of a widowmaker or flying coffin doesn't know anything about the aircraft. Yes, it requires a tremendous amount of careful handling. It requires tremendous amount of competence and professionalism, and it requires a man to fly this aircraft. And of course, even the lady who's called the Priya Sharma who's going to fly today, I consider her as a warrior lady who's going to fly on this warrior lady plane. And like I was telling you, that it brought in relationship. We were considering Mirage 3 as also MiG-21 in 1963, but we finally went with Russia primarily because they gave us permission for licensed production of this, which meant transfer of technology also. And HAL was formed in 1964. And HAL modified this aircraft. Initially had a good radar and air-to-air missiles R5S. And then later on, CAR-13 heat-seeking missiles, which you could go behind and shoot the aircraft. It did not have a gun, so gun was instituted by the HAL, and subsequently it had a delta wing design, which meant it could rapidly climb, rapidly accelerate to Mach 2. Mach 2 is 2 times the speed of sound, that is 2,500 kilometers per hour. And like I was telling you, this aircraft taught me how to fight, taught me how to live by the limitations of the aircraft. It had the highest landing speed in the world at 310 to 340 kilometers per hour. And this gave me such capabilities that the gentleman, group captain who mentioned about TACD, that is Tactics and Air Combat Development Establishment, which is the Top Gun School of India. And I was the youngest instructor posted there in 1991. And in fact, when I went to that squadron, the people who came for training under me were much senior to me, who themselves had thousands of hours of combat and flying, as well as strike missions. And when I was teaching them, I was learning much more than anybody else. If this aircraft has been the backbone of the IAF with 24 squadrons at one period of time, it has also been a counter to the Western technology at its time. And if you remember the time in 1971 war, when this aircraft shot down 13 Pakistani aircraft, which included F-104s, starfighters, Sabres F-86, F-6, and even a C-130 Hercules aircraft. In Kargil War, my very good friend Ajay Ahuja, I think Squad Leader Aditi mentioned that, and you will not believe it. I had breakfast in his house. My whole family had breakfast in his house before he went for Kargil. We had gone there on a normal trip, and when I learned that he had sacrificed his life, I think it's a great moment to give tribute to him, and I'm thankful to Squad Leader for having mentioned his name. I'm also thankful to hundreds and thousands of technical officers and technicians who maintained this aircraft. People say it was difficult to maintain. No, it was one of the easiest aircraft. In fact, pilots could turn it around when you went into some places where you could land and there was no immediate support available from the airport's airfield side. The pilots could turn around in terms of refueling, air, and oil, and all that, and we were given training for that. Yes, when anything gets old, the aerostructures start weakening, and what happens is that their failure rate increases. There are no spares available. In fact, there were no spares being made for the last many years of MiG-21 aircraft. Yes,
Right.
it did have 400 accidents, but 400 accidents spread over 62 years. Please look at it. So, what does the average come? And in millions of hours of flying. So, if anybody calls it a widowmaker, I think I'll have two words with that person. Now, coming to my feelings today, let me assure you, I feel extremely sad but happy and extremely nostalgic that I had the privilege to share beautiful moments with this beautiful warrior lady who took me across in difficult situations and made me understand what fighter flying was. And like I told you earlier, any fighter pilot worth his salt, if he's flown MiG-21 aircraft, he would be very emotional today.